It's all great as long as you fucking broke my cork. Holy shit.
So it just popped right off. Yep, I'm just going to leave that right there.
What a dick. What a dick.
I don't know how that happened. Well,
you know what? The bottle probably said, fuck you. You don't like me?
Yeah.
That's not going to give me anymore.
I guess we're not going to try that one, right?
That's all right. Seriously, though, what a dick.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm sure you missed those opening credits just as much as we did. And this week on Wednesday, it was National Bourbon Day. So what a better way to bring back the podcast than having it on the week of National Bourbon Day. Last week, or should I say the past break, we had a chance to really regroup and refigure out our strategy. And we didn't really get to relax too much. We recorded, I think, close to 11 podcasts over this break. So we got a lot of good ones in the hopper, and still we're interviewing and talking to a lot of guests that are still to come. If you're not following us on all those great social media channels, then you may have missed it, but we have completely revamped and relaunched our website, bourbonpursuit.com. So when you go to the homepage, you can now sort all of our podcasts and all of our episodes by distillery, by whiskey women, bourbon roundtables. There's even a full text and index searchable piece to it. So you can search any keyword and you can find any podcast that you might want to know about. This is, of course, another video podcast for today, and moving forward, these are all going to be done on video. So make sure you like us on Facebook, you follow us on Facebook, because that's where all the podcasts are going to be posted. So you go there, and you'll be able to see all the new podcasts that are going to be coming out. It's a great way to be able to see all the interactions that are happening between us and the guests, and especially with Fred Minnick today. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And lastly, we are always looking for partnerships to help and grow and support this podcast. So say you work at a marketing agency, or you work at a marketing or work in a marketing group at a company, or maybe you just own a small business and you want to get in front of 10,000 whiskey geeks per episode, send us an email, or what you can do is you can actually go to our website, bourbonpursuit.com, look at the very top tab, and there's a partnerships link. Go there. We've got a media kit with all the information about our downloads, our stats, and everything that we can do to get your brand in front of thousands of whiskey geeks. With that, enjoy this week's episode. Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single barrel bourbon to try, with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21. Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order.
Play Whiskey Wednesday, Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26, each week you could win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select $2 at checkout. And if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixir's Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 a cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now at whiskeyambitions.com. Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof, and the flavoring grain for this one
which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com, and you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long.
Welcome back to an episode of the Bourbon Pursuit Podcast, the official podcast of bourbon. Well, Ryan, we are here back at it again.
We're in Fred's bunker.
Yeah, I know, and we're doing moving to video, which is fun. I think it brings a new dynamic to what people can get out of the podcast. Whether you're watching this, I think it's fun because you can kind of see us, what we're doing right now, what we're drinking, and all those kind of good things too.
Yeah, we're hanging out in Fred's bunker. Appreciate you having us. We're stealing his stash right now, but drinking on some Texas whiskey, which is a first for us.
I know, because definitely we've got, I don't want to say pride, maybe prejudice, maybe whatever it is, but it's we typically don't steer out of the state, but it's drinkable. It's good. And from what he's telling me,
I know a lot of people say, "Oh, that's got great potential," and you're like,
"It's good. It's good for
craft," but it is actually. I can see the potential.
So I guess introduce our guest, Fred Minnick. Everybody knows him. Everybody loves him. He's got books.
I wouldn't go that far.
Not everybody loves him, but he's got a lot of books out there. You got Bourbon Curious, Rum Curious. We've got Whiskey Women, Bourbon, The Rise, Fall, and History and Rebirth. There's so many, right? So Fred, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I want you to just give us an idea of what we are drinking right here, because this is something that was unique. Bottle number 4 of 124 of a 5-year spirit from Texas.
Well, I just grabbed a bunch of random shit here, and I pulled on this one, and your eyes blew up. You're like, oh, Texas.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the hell out of here. Are you kidding me?
And this was
on the top of
this
it.
is a Balcones, the bourbon. Their 5th anniversary. I thought it was really good. I'm actually a big fan of some of the Texas bourbons coming out. I like what Garrison Brothers is doing and what Balcones is doing. There's also a brand called Iron Root that's doing some cool things. And I got news for you guys. You may be loyal to Kentucky and all that, and that's fantastic. I am too. But you want these other states to do well. For bourbon as a
rising
category.
Tide raises all boats.
Because if bourbon is to take that next level, these guys have to be there. And this is the direction of flavor that you want to see people going. You don't want to see wood. You don't want to see burnt grains. And so when it comes to these smaller distilleries, you're looking for like a taste of elimination. And when I taste like a plastic or a drywall or a burnt corn.
It's like when you tasting drywall, you just go, just put a hole in your wall and be like,
there's a lot of construction going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of construction. I also wrestled. So I've faced a few foes who maybe put my head through drywall. So I've actually got and I was in the military where maybe I had some drywall flavorings there. But anyway, this isn't about my drywall tasting abilities. But what you're looking for in these newer distilleries are good flavors versus bad, and there's I would say this is one of the better bourbons that have come out outside of Kentucky. And what's interesting is this was made by Chip Tate, and Chip Tate, of course, had
the name sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, he was the founder for Balcones, and he had a dispute with the people that came in for partnership. And so this would have been one of his last releases. So this is, it's to me, it's one of the examples of where you can go. This is from my Dusty collection. It's a Four Roses single barrel for the Japanese market. If you read my blog, fredminnick.com, you may recall this bottle. I scored it. It's an example of how old Dusties are not always good,
right?
So this is it's okay, but
I saw you just dump it.
He poured himself a good hefty, probably 1.5 ounce pour in his Glencairn and just took a sip and he said, "Well, this is going in the trash."
Yeah, well,
so can we sub out a bottle?
My point with the tasting this is I would take modern Four Roses any day of the week. and what they do at Four Roses is exceptional stuff. And they had some quality issues back in the early '90s and late '80s, and when what they were sending to Japan wouldn't always meet that same standard that they have today. So I think the Four Roses you get today is leaps and bounds better than would have been exported to Japan.
It's good to know. So I guess let's talk about what you've been doing like in the past few months, right? The last time you were on was
Barrel Batch 11, the one in San Francisco.
Yeah, we want to talk about San Francisco for sure. So I want to talk about the last episode you were on was episode 69. And since then, what have you been up to? Like that was about 6 months ago, year ago, something. That was about 6 months ago. But yeah, like kind of what's been going on.
I've been writing books and writing for magazines, and basically just doing a lot more events. Like I've been right around the time that we had our last conversation. People were starting to come to me just to do private tastings and do all this just one-on-one stuff. And if you'd have told me when I was in high school that I'd be drinking for a living and writing about
People
it.
be paying you to come.
I mean, I just
conduct a bourbon tasting.
And I've always done things with the Kentucky Derby Museum. I've had a good 5-year relationship with those guys. That's been awesome.
Which you can also get on the Bourbon Pursuit podcast.
Right.
We are partner with the Legend Series with Fred Minnick being the MC there. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you all there. It's good to have those recordings. I think you should actually ask to get the old ones because they've recorded all of them. Mm-hmm. We have some great interviews there from years past.
I wish we would have thought about it earlier, to be honest with you. So.
Well, we tried once and failed miserably.
But now
I hope you enjoy it, though. I feel like I tried to bring like a geek level kind of enthusiasm there.
I can definitely see you getting excited there. You get to put like your journalist hat on and ask hard questions, and
because they're on stage, they can't.
Yeah,
they
can't back out, and you can kind of see some of the questions you ask. They're kind of like, squirming in their chair a little bit. They're like, I guess I got to answer this. But,
the one I asked, Campbell Brown, when I asked him about Marianne.
Oh, yeah.
Marianne Barnes.
You could tell it was an awkward.
But I thought that he answered that so well. Like, I mean, he complimented her and he nailed it, I thought. But at the same time, it's what I try to do. I try to bring like a journalistic style things, and that has brought in people to want me to do private tastings with them, more at home and more at like major, corporation events. One of the coolest things I've done is I had the Asian ambassador delegation, and I did a private tasting with them. I've done I did a private tasting for Wayne LaPierre and the executive, the high level NRA members, which everyone has an opinion on that. I'm not going there for that, but just to say that's kind of stuff I'm getting the opportunity to do, and I've got a lot of cool things that's coming up. One of the things is that everyone in Louisville knows about Forecastle. I'm getting to kind of host and lead the fireside chats for that, and Forecastle is this amazing concert series that was homegrown here. You guys had J.K. McKnight on.
Yeah, he was on a few episodes ago.
And he actually mentioned me being a part of it, and so he kind of teased it there. But I'm leading their fireside chat, so I get to take a little bit of what I do at the Kentucky Derby Museum and do it there in the Bourbon Lodge at Forecastle. Another thing I'm doing is Bourbon and Beyond. The Danny Wimmer Presents groups called me up and said, hey, we're doing this thing with Stevie Nicks and Steve Miller Band and Eddie Vedder, and we would like you to curate our bourbon side of things.
That's a big, something that hard to say no to, right?
I'm more excited about Tom Colicchio.
Yes,
I'm a Top Chef guy. So.
And we've part of that programming there, and it's amazing. We're doing like a lot of food pairings. We're going to be doing a lot of really cool educational seminars, and I think to me it's like it's kind of fun to see the combination of music and bourbon go together.
It's always been pretty much together, music and bourbon.
It's been together, but
please, if it's like a good,
might as well
cool
make it official.
68 degrees, right?
Yeah.
In the middle of June and at 90 degrees, it's gonna be tough to put your game face on, I think.
Yeah, well, we'll have, it'll be cool in some of the areas, and then shaded over.
VIP, AC, tent, of course.
And I just think it's really cool that here we are now. I remember 10 years ago, a bourbon event was basically just going to Liquor Barn and talking to Jim Rutledge or Jimmy Russell and tasting. And now you have some of the most valued and important concert organizers in the world, bringing bourbon in, and it's really cool to see how far that's come, and to be able to be a part of it. It's like I'm pinching myself every day. Every day, I'm thankful for these opportunities.
I mean, you got ahead of it very early on, and you're a very well-known name that's inside of just the bourbon industry in general, right? So I think you were probably their number one choice for a lot of these things, because don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that know a lot of stuff about whiskey, but not everybody is a very good presenter. They're not able to get up on stage or maybe ask the hard questions to the right people or whatever it is too, right? And you're able to do all those.
Well, it's kind of you, but I look at it as like... it's all right time, right place kind of thing, and I think I've learned a lot from the people I've interviewed over the years. Some of the most entertaining people have been like Fred Noe, who can spin a yarn.
And I think
ask a question, you just sit back and take it all in.
Yeah, you don't know where things are going to go.
You let it ride.
we could do like a cuss word counter like they did on South Park one time too, right? Yeah.
But I look at this as entertainment. While I'm able to do a little bit of kind of, I don't do much investigative work anymore because it's just not.
It's a rat race.
Well, the type of stuff I was doing, no one was
already been brought out.
Well, it's brought out. No one was reading it. That's a big thing is you can see what people read now. I can see. I mean, I did some exposés. I might have had like 300 people read it. Versus I was like, man, I spent like 400 hours on this. So I think we can be serious in this business, but to an extent, this is an entertainment business because it's basically the same as like sports, to some degree, movies and all that. But what people are interested in mostly is how things taste. So anytime I write about something where my thoughts on a particular bourbon, shit goes through the roof. Where if it's a lawsuit, I might have 1/10 of the readers. So it's a lot of it, and believe me, I don't get paid to write things on my blog. I have Whiskey Advocate and Whiskey Magazine pay me, but they're not interested. They want how the whiskey's made and how and what it tastes like and all that. So it's a very interesting world in terms of how I've evolved, in terms of how I used to cover this world. And in my books, that's just pure me. That's what I want to write, and I don't give a shit if anybody buys them. That's what I'm writing, So Bourbon Curious is in Bourbon, the rise, fall, and rebirth of American whiskey. Those are exactly the words I want to put down, and fortunately, people have bought those. And I think the legends and the more juicy details are better fit for a book, in which case I'll always be putting them in there. But another cool thing I'm doing, and this one probably blew my mind over everything else, and that was a bourbon cruise.
That's
Norwegian Cruise Lines via an agency planning service reached out to me, and we're doing a really cool cruise in February 10th through 18th, where we're going to start in Miami and go through the Caribbean.
Wow!
And we'll have like bourbon classes.
Can we get media passes?
As I say, the official podcast of the Bourbon Cruise, right? Yeah.
We'll look into that for you.
Yeah.
You guys mind, being in like the
very gallows,
the very bottom? Yeah.
Can you put coal in the engines
for the engines to make sure they're running? Well, that's a pretty interesting. I guess talk to me about Norwegian Cruise Lines, Bourbon Cruise. But I mean, like, what could you expect if you were to go on something like that?
So there's going to basically. I'm just like a little bit of entertainment for you. Like we're going to do. Are
you going to be in the Speedo or swimming?
He's going to be.
Nobody wants to see me in the Speedo.
Juggling fire.
Definitely not juggling. But basically, it's going to be doing some tastings, some seminars. We're working on having some distillers there. In fact, when this airs, we might actually have somebody who will be there with us to do like a basically a Derby Museum style Q&A, and there's gonna be a lot of classes, but really it's about being on the ocean you get really nice sweet. You get we're going to be porting in the Bahamas, St. Thomas. So you're going to have a lot of just typical cruise stuff. All the food and drink come with your purchase.
That's the best deal right there.
And by the way, we're not drinking swill. So and also
good whiskey for 8 days.
Yeah, we're going to have. It's basically just imagine
all the German men you need to get there.
It's a bunch of bourbon and a bunch of rum. Bourbon is the headliner here, but there will still be some rum. I feel like you cannot go on a cruise without having some rum.
I would think it seemed fitting, and you're kind of the guy to talk about it too, right?
Yeah, That's, as you know, I wrote a rum book, Rum Curious, and I've been very hot on rum for some time, and I think they complement one another on. And this cruise is a great case in point. The Jefferson's Ocean is an interesting study, in terms of like that style of rum. But they actually did used to ship barrels of bourbon to Europe, and they would extract some of that kind of like ocean flavors from the sea.
There is one that I saw recently called like Pennypacker bourbon. Right, it's actually distilled here, yet it's bottled in Germany. Right, so it just kind of has a Jefferson's Ocean maybe twang or taste to it, but doesn't really package or market itself like that.
Yeah, Pennypacker, that's an older kind of brand. I haven't spent a lot of time with it, but the people would prior to Prohibition, there was Owsley Brown shipped I want to say like 20,000 gallons of bourbon to France. And they would sell in bulk to these countries. And Germany bought a lot, Japan bought a lot, France bought a lot for blending purposes. So you had all these countries who were buying American whiskey, and it's true, you would get different flavors over there. So the origins of Jefferson's Ocean is in truth. It was not a very large market, but it happened.
All right, because when I read that label, I was always kind of amazed that it would be cheaper to ship the barrels to Germany to have it bottled and then ship it back here to actually sell it in the store, right?
Yeah.
It still blows my mind today, but I mean that's a good tidbit information. So another question I kind of ask you about, the laws are changing here in Kentucky, and you brought out this Four Roses Dusty bottle, and there is kind of a new Dusty law that's been talked about, and this is allowing regular consumers that have been hoarding bottles or being like Ryan and asking family members to start digging through their old liquor cabinets. But it gives you the ability to actually sell to bars, restaurants, and retail stores. What are your thoughts? Like, what? Because I think it's from my opinion, I think it's a really cool thing, and it's a good thing because we are the home of the Bourbon Trail. And if you want to try any bourbon that's ever been made and kind of run the gamut, you should be able to do it here.
Not go to DC.
Exactly. And I think there's a lot of cool things that it's going to do in regards of tourism for the restaurants and bars. But I kind of want to get your opinion.
Yeah, I think that the vintage spirits bill, as it was kind of dubbed, was probably the most important consumer law passed in Kentucky since the end of Prohibition. And all the laws that have been passed in the state have either been to raise taxes or to benefit distillers in one way, shape, or form. But there's really not been anything that specifically benefited consumers. And the distillers, they don't get, unless they're opening a bar, which a lot of them are, they don't get anything out of this. All they get is maybe that people come down here and go for a tourist destination.
So is that packed into this bill where they can now serve cocktails or whatever?
Well, that was in previous bills.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
So they had
11% of bill 11 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
there were previous bills that allowed them to have bars and a cocktail scene and restaurants, and so you have a lot of them doing that. Basically, their whole vision is to be like California. Where you have Napa Valley, owning the day with restaurants and what have you. Mm-hmm. But I believe that and I've been interviewed by a lot of people about this. I feel like it's about time. In wine, nobody bats an eye if you buy a bottle from the 1960s from another person or in an auction. Yet in whiskey, you're looked at as like a
Flipper criminal.
Yeah, well, the flipper, that's a whole different
That's a
category.
different thing.
But I mean, here we are relegated to purchase wherever we can these old bottles. And you can look around in my office to see that I maybe go out a time or two to buy a bottle here and there, and exchange.
Put some money back in the economy.
I carry it back in my trunk. I do that.
You give out free memberships to fredminnick.com.
That's free anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think it's valuable, but anyway, you have you have all this enthusiasm, but yet we're not able to reap the same benefits as wine enthusiasts. So I think it's about time, and I think it's a great law that passed, and I'm very excited. And I buy a lot of it.
Why now? What do you think the catalyst is? Was like, finally we can do this. What?
I think these bourbon distillers are extremely smart, and they saw that there's a ceiling. The ceiling is fast approaching for tourism, and the state saw that too. The state wants people to come here, and right now, if you want a bottle of something from the 1960s Stitzel Weller, when the Van Winkles owned it, good luck.
Yeah,
good luck. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. Your chances are not very good you're going to be able to, acquire a bottle or taste a bottle. But now it will be more accessible for people to come and taste it. So when you reach that level where let's say you're a Wall Streeter, you've reached that level where you've tasted everything in bourbon, and you're like, okay, you got your favorites and you've got your next thing, but
what's next? Like, what else is there?
What else is there? And so now you know that you can fly to Kentucky and experience like a bottle of 1964 Old Fitzgerald. That's the year that bourbon got its unique product designation from Congress. It's a year that Pappy, the Van Winkles, still would have owned the family, or still would have owned the distillery. And so, you want to taste that. That's a little bit of piece of history. So you can't do that right now. You could go to Jack Rose, you can go to Cannon in Seattle, but it's not Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And so people are wanting to experience that. And oh, by the way, there are people who are commissioning private jets to do stuff like that. I mean, I've been hired to do private tastings with some of these people. And if Kentucky's not there to answer that call, then suddenly they're going to France for Armagnac. And so it's very much in Kentucky's best interest to have that next step for that high level connoisseur. And oh, by the way, a lot of people are not always going to like what they get in the vintage market. It's completely different flavor profiles. Sometimes the bottle's sour. There's a lot of things that can go wrong.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about something else, right? Because you've also been busy. You took a trip out West Coast to San Francisco, mm-hmm. and that was an interesting, because one of your highlights of the blogs, and I think, it definitely lit up the whiskey world, because the next day the shelves were cleaned yet again in Kentucky. But I want to kind of talk about it, because you called it one of the greatest upsets of a whiskey competition. So kind of talk about it a little bit, because we are drinking it right now as well.
Yeah. So Ryan, would you mind?
No.
For those listening, I bruised a rib and literally pouring.
No, I just think you like to be served.
Pouring a bottle actually hurts really bad. So if I can get Ryan to do it,
then he'll feel bad.
I'll be numb after this one. So I am a judge on the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. And from a numbers perspective, they get the most bottles of the competitions out there. And I've been a judge on that for a few years now. And every year,
your Super Bowl?
It's like it's a Super Bowl. It really is. It's a Super Bowl, and it's also like a fraternity, because it's the world's greatest palates. And consumers don't get to a lot of the spirits industry is basically behind closed doors, and you don't see the people. Like, about me, and about David Wondrich, and about a lot of other people who are very public, like Greg Davis from Maker's Mark, or Jim Rutledge, formerly with Four Roses. You know about those people. But the most important people in the spirits business are distributors. And distributors basically taste things and decide where they go. And that's a good chunk of the judges there, as well as what I think are probably, right there with them. And that's the bar owners and the liquor store owners. These are people who have respected palates and are highly appreciated. And then there's like me and like some tasters of some people who write about the stuff and just know the categories and have proven their worth in this world. And so in my opinion, best palates in the world are in that room, with the exception of a few are missing, obviously, because not everyone's a member or a part of that. And so what we do is we taste. It starts at the panel level, and the panel will get several categories, and we will all taste them, and we will medal them. And we are asked to medal them based on the glass. And I like to equate it to being like a magazine scoring system. So a 70 to like 79 would be a bronze. Okay. And so an 80 to 89 would be a silver, and then 90 and above would be a gold. There's not very many bourbons or spirits that you will taste that fall below that kind of like 70-point level. Mm-hmm. I score a lot of things below 70 points for Whiskey Advocate. Yeah, you can go through my history of what I've rated, and I've scored a lot of things 60 to 69. And so, but there's not, even some of the ones that I wasn't too hot on, I would score it a 74. And I don't think there's a lot of people who'd be very excited to have a 74 from me. But so those are kind of the standards we're given. We're judged by the glass, and I try to follow that kind of like magazine standard. If at your table every single judge gives something a gold, then you all then that glass is then given a double gold. And right then and there, we decide whether or not it can go forward as if it should go forward to compete for best in class. And so like a class would be like in this competition, they separate straight bourbon from small batch and single barrel. Every competition is different, but this is how they do it. And so I draw the bourbons. So whatever panel I'm on gets a good chunk of the bourbons. And we had a bourbon flight. And I remember tasting this one. I was like loaded with marzipan, honey, really rich. It just stood out. And
everything's blind too, right?
Everything's blind. We will know the proof. So we'll be told the proof. And if there's a stated age, we will be given the age. And I was like, this is spectacular. And everyone agreed. It was like everyone's like highest. It was probably the most appreciated for my panel that we had. And so we sent it on. And then other people had bourbons too, and they would send theirs on. And there was what we have called a super taste-off. And at the super taste-off is when you have all of these...
It's like there's a joke hidden in there somewhere, right?
So you have a super taste-off, and then you have all these other... people gravitate toward what they know. So you have like, the spirits buyer for a major bar in LA. You have, the leading whiskey bartender in the country. You have, people like that. One guy's on the Bourbon Hall of Fame, is in there. So you have a lot of these like really high level tasters will go to the super taste off to taste what there's really, really strong in. Like I wouldn't be going to the super taste off for gin. I can judge gin, but that's going to be reserved for people who are really strong in gin. I'm obviously really strong in bourbon and rum, so those are the ones, in rye and other whiskeys, so those are the ones I would get picked for. And so I go over there, and we're tasting. I think there's probably 12 bourbons we have to narrow down to the finals. And at this point, we don't know anything about them. They don't tell us This year was
Country of origin.
Yeah.
well with bourbon. You obviously know.
It's like a spelling bee thing, right? Like how could you decipher this much as
So
possible?
now we're just tasting and we're raising our hand when we're asked to vote on it. And I tasted what I thought was this one. Again, it's blind, and although I've been doing this for a while, you're sometimes tricked with what you're tasting. Like you're like, oh, I think it's this, but it's really that. Especially after a long day of tasting. And so we put forth what we thought were the best, and they would compete for the next day for best in category. So we had just, we determined class, and then we determined category. So class being straight, small batch, single barrel, so forth. With the best of those classes would then go on to compete for best bourbon. And we would taste these, and as I would later find out, it would be barrel bourbon batch 11, competing against an Elijah Craig and a Blanton's. I thought the Blanton's, what I would later learn would be a Blanton's barrel proof.
Straight from the barrel, yeah.
Yeah,
export only.
I thought it was really solid. It was really rich and just kind of like a real traditional bourbon, or a caramel bomb, if you will.
I was actually honestly surprised that an export only was in there, right? Something that's just not even available in the States.
I am just a judge.
Yeah.
What gets sent there, I have no say in that. So like I can only judge what's in my glass, and that competition.
Well, and too, like with single barrels, it's like you're tasting that. That's the only barrel of that, So it's like, how can that be fair?
I think that's a great critique. I really do. And if you feel so strongly, send it to the competition. But I'm just a judge on the. Yeah. So like I look at those, and I think that warrants some thought. But what I have learned is that some people will send things to competition and see if they want to enter the market. So who's to say that it's not coming to the U.S.? I don't know. It's probably not. I'm probably just throwing out another rumor here.
Conspiracy theory.
But what I've learned in the spirits business is that when it comes to intent and what is, it can be any number of things, and then you throw in money and everything kind of just
gets a little mixed up.
It's a different world. This isn't the choir boy industry. But I feel like San Francisco, with the judges and how we do it, I'm very proud of being a part of it, because I feel like we're very fair to every glass there, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And that's our objective, or at least the objective that's laid upon us, is to be fair to the glass before you.
And so I guess talk about this barrel bourbon batch 11. Like what was it that automatically stood out? And I guess I also want to know your was it shock when you found out? What was your initial reaction?
Well, what I'm looking for.
What did you think it was when you were drinking? I want to know that.
Okay. Yeah. So when I'm tasting, I'm looking for really pronounced notes, making sure all the major things are there. There's no flaws, and I'm wanting to make sure there's not one note overtaking the other. And then when we get to this round, they're all kind of really strong, right? So you're looking for one note that stands out above the other. And is that one note stronger than what the other glass has? And I'm tasting these, I'm going back and forth, and what I would later learn was Blanton's was like a caramel bomb. It was really very classic in bourbon style, and it was phenomenal. And then when I get to the other glass, which I would later learn was barrel, I thought to myself, this is so damn good, and there's not another taste in this competition like it. It's like this marzipan and honey and this intense fried dough. Just had a lot of stuff going on with it. And each one of those notes was equal in how pronounced they were. So that would be what I would describe as nuance and, a complexity, if you will. And then I would go back and taste the other bourbon, and it was really, really forward with the caramel.
Yeah, it's one strong note.
One very strong one. And then everything else was kind of like an undernotes or like a hint. Was how I would often write about it. It was like it'd be like a hint of a baking spice or vanilla or whatever. And so when you have a spirit that is one predominant note, and that note is amazing, and then most times that's going to win compared to a note or compared to a bourbon that had like 3 or 4 notes that were they were on par with intensity as that one note, but there were 3 of them in that glass, 3 or 4 of them in that glass. That to me kind of creates a clear-cut winner. But these notes were so out there that I didn't, when I was voting for it, I did not think it would win because the other one was more of a traditional, flavor. And, one of the things that I had thought about going into competition, that some of the best bourbon that I had tasted in the past year on a very consistent basis was sourced whiskey. And barrel bourbon being one of the, premier leaders in that. And I don't know, I don't know how they're getting their whiskey. I don't know. Obviously, I think we can all say for certain that Barrel's getting the stuff that they say is distilled in Tennessee from Dickel. But all the other ones, I don't always know where they're getting their stuff. But their stuff has been really, really good.
It's solid. I mean, it's a good bourbon.
Yeah,
right.
It's very good. And so when this won, I was surprised. I was really, really surprised. But I had about 3 or 4 products that I thought and Barrel was one of those 3 products that I thought it might be.
Okay. So you kind of had an idea,
I had an idea based on flavor profile, but I could not have skewed anybody. And believe me,
but you knew it was going to be like a source whiskey.
I had
an idea.
I had a feeling it was a source product. I did. I absolutely did.
So when you were drinking the Blanton's, you were like, this tastes like that typical.
It tastes
Buffalo
exactly
Trace.
like Bland straight from the barrel. Right?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, I had no idea what that was.
Interesting.
What is marzipan? Sorry.
Yeah, you talk about it a lot. And I'm like, is it like a creme brulee, like a frosted sugar or something like that, or a caramelized sugar? Like I have no idea.
You have your Google?
I have actually it all turned off right now. So
yeah. And so it's basically like an almond paste.
Okay.
It's
It's a special thing that it's very commonly used in France.
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point of sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon. If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT at checkout for $5 off your subscription.
So, you taste a lot of whiskeys. I think it's like what you said, like 250 over the span of like 72 hours or something like that. Last time we had talked about it, it's a lot. Now, because it always seems like in a marketing game, there's never anything that comes out and it says like, oh, we got a gold medal or a silver medal at San Francisco. Like, thumbs up to us, right? Because it seems like that's always like an easy shoe-in for any kind of marketing spiel, right?
Yeah.
Now, is the how high? Should I say how high is that bar set to be able to make it to that level?
If you get gold, to me it's a big deal. But again, I kind of equate it to like being a magazine score, you know.
And not only that, is once you make it one time, I'm pretty sure like even Eagle Rare has it on their little hang tag that says like we were gold medal in like the 2009.
Well, I think they're required to have the year on there.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll have that. But in that defense, like you will see brands putting medals on there from the 1800s. So
the glory days.
Grand Marnier will have an 1800s medal on there. I think there's even a Willett product that has a state fair medal on there. I want to say it's Old Bardstown.
That's like Indiana thinking they're relevant in basketball when their last like championship was in the 70s. No, I'm kidding.
So that's actually not too uncommon. You know, the thing about competitions is that there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them, but you know, in the early days of whiskey, you know, you didn't really have a trust in what you were drinking, and so there were government agencies that were created at the state level. They were called assayers. About knocked over my whole shelf there. Holy crap. Did you see that?
Yeah.
For anybody that wasn't, or if you're not watching it, I'm sitting here trying to adjust audio, and then I bumped my shoulder back, and then it almost took down like
Fred freaked out for a second.
200 bottles worth of rum over here.
450. But, you know, hey, who's counting? Anyway, so... yeah, so there were these assayers, distillers would send in their product to these state officials, and they would verify the quality of the whiskey, and would, in some cases would rate it, and the distillers would then publish those findings. In the U.S. meat industry, we have USDA Select, USDA Choice, and USDA Prime. The packagers or in the packing houses, they actually pay for that. So that's not an inspector service, that's a marketing service. And spirits, we don't have anything like that. All we have are designations of age. And that's why, you know, the market kind of reacted to magazines in these competitions to give like a quality stamp from somebody. And so there's not that's what consumers are looking for. They're looking for a quality stamp. And whether it be like you think it's a magazine or it's a competition, if it's a competition, what competition is it? But you can judge how valuable something is based on what the marketers will do with it. And if a brand only thing they have to show for is a bronze, they don't have other things to show for it, then, you know, as a consumer, that might be an indicator that it's not that up to snuff, because every bottle has that. So you have like if you look at most of your shelves on most of the marketing materials, most of the bottles have some kind of metal. There's tons of competitions, and I'm a judge on a few of them. And yes, I do get paid. It's fun.
I was about to say,
I'm not going to apologize for it.
There's worse things.
It's a lot of fun.
It's better than shoveling elephant shit at the circus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
who the hell's shoveled elephant shit in the circus in this room?
Not I. I have shoveled pig shit.
I did do that growing up with hogs and such, but at any rate,
Needless to say.
I think when it comes to San Francisco, you can definitely trust that what we tasted that day, if it got gold or double gold or won something, you can trust that what we tasted that day is exactly what we thought was the best. Mm-hmm. And whether the brands take that and do something with it elsewhere, that's on them, man. Yeah. That's on them. I can't do anything about that. But I'm telling you, what I tasted that day with barrel bourbon, what I later learned would be Whistle Pig for best whiskey. I mean, they were exceptional.
Loaded.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to take a twist on this a little bit, and talk about just the bourbon, I don't know, genre in essence of what it is right now. I mean, do you think that bourbon is almost like, at least on the retail side and the marketing side, it's almost turning like a gimmick with releases now? Because at what point can we just stop it with all the experimentation? Because at some point, I thought Buffalo Trace has done everything across the moon of what could possibly be done.
Well, I wrote about this for my column in Whiskey Advocate a year or two ago, and it's all great as long as you fucking broke my cork. Holy shit!
So it just popped right off. Yep, I'm just gonna leave that right there.
What a dick!
What a dick!
I don't know how that happened. Well,
you know what? The bottle probably said, fuck you. You don't like me?
Yeah.
That's not gonna give me
I
anymore.
guess we're not gonna try that one, right?
That's all right.
Seriously though, what a dick.
Well, okay, I guess it's a good question. Even on dusty bottles, like I'm just sitting here like trying to just barely nudge it out. Is there a twist technique that I should have been doing properly? I didn't break your
cork.
You
need to know how to twist something never mind. Anyway, corks they will dry out. You gotta keep your cork wet. Mm-hmm. You gotta go in there and rotate the bottle sometimes.
Cork
which you didn't do.
Yeah.
So Kenny broke it.
Well,
now, please don't break my Balcones bottle.
You got some homework now. Okay.
So where were we? What were we talking about?
So we're just talking about just gimmicks and bourbon, right?
Yeah.
Releases and there's no shortage of everything. I mean, let's take for example.
Ryan, talk real quick. Let me get I'm gonna get you another bottle of something. You guys talk about something, then I'll come in.
And the one of the things that I'm kind of thinking about here is that we have things like the Orphan Barrel release, the Orphan Barrel release that just released in this beautiful wooden case that's probably worth I don't know. I think it retails like $1,800 or $2,000 for like 6 bottles of Orphan Barrel plus the thing. Then you've got the latest Old Rip Van Winkle 25 that's got this charred wooden.
Comes with the original barrel in the box.
Out of the box. Like, I mean, it's almost like people are wanting to collect display pieces. And there's another thing that it was very funny and interesting. I saw this on one of those Facebook things that there's a new Abraham Bowman release that's coming out. It's a 375 milliliter rare release where they aged the bourbon 9 years. Then they transferred into barrels that held bourbon that had been already aged for 9 years. They lowered the proof before barreling it again and lowered the proof yet again when bottling 3 years later, which it probably is not accurate to say that this is a 12-year-old whiskey, but now it's also being taken down to 100 proof, being the equivalent like an $80 bottle. And they're coming out with a second version of this, and it's almost the same exact story where, again, it's a 9-year aged bourbon, but this time put into barrels that have already been used 3 times. Once 9 years in bourbon, sometimes in months for port, third times in months for bourbon, and now a 4th time. It's like the experimentation is almost going like through the roof where it's getting comical, and they're charging $80, $100 a bottle for a 375.
Yeah, I think I turned it off. Sorry about that. I think people are looking for relevancy. And one of the, Buffalo Trace obviously does not need relevancy. What they're trying to do, I believe, is different than a lot of other people. And let me give you some history of experimentation in whiskey. Like, let me ask you this. Do you know the difference between barrel entry proofs in terms of how it impacts, the whiskey flavor?
Well, I mean, if it comes in at a lower proof, it should be able to take more characteristics of oak to be able to be.
But most of that's anecdotal. Most of that's anecdotal. There have been a handful of studies, and they were all pre-1960s by Seagram's. And there were a couple by Shinley. So most of the research on what people are doing are based on pre-1970, pre-1960. So when bourbon lost its glory in some ways in the late 70s and 80s, they just kind of did things to make money. Now that they have a little bit of that ability to experiment, they're back at it. And they're trying to answer questions that there's not a lot of good data points on. And, what Buffalo Trace is doing with all their experimentation, you have to look at this as an opportunity of, like, what the future could hold. A lot of it's going to taste like ass. Don't get me wrong. There's not a lot of it's going to taste good. And some of it is going to be brilliant. And I guarantee you're already seeing it.
But they want to call it rare too, right? They want to call it rare.
Well, that's a different thing. In terms of the marketing and what they put on the label and how they're coining in press releases. I view those things completely separate. I'm looking at it, from a pure science standpoint. I look at it differently than the marketing side. Like on the production houses and what they're doing, I'm very excited about where things are going. And not everyone releases everything. Brown-Forman has a lot of experiments going on, but you may not see half of them. They were Wild Turkey was experimenting with barrel finishes in the 90s, and they had one release in early 2000s. So you have this stuff has always been going on, but I think there's some things that you may want to pay attention to in terms of an experiment. You gotta, as bourbon drinkers, we gotta develop a dump button at some point with all the shit that comes at us. And even to me, as an extent, like I'm numb to some of the stuff that comes my way. One of the big ones for me is the first distillery since Prohibition in whatever town or state or whatever. To me, I'm so tired of hearing that. To me, like if you're the first distillery in Prohibition, since then, and if that's the only piece of marketing that you have, push it in your local market, go for it. But that's not going to be anything that excites me. But one thing that I think you should be on the lookout for that truly is an experiment at one level, and that's sweet mashing. Sour mashing is the fermentation technique that we've all known. They take backset from the distillation and put it in the new fermentation. But sweet mashing is when they don't do that. And when you do sweet mashing, you have a higher chance of bacterial infestation. And you have Peerless Distilling, their sweet mashing, Garrison Brothers sweet mashing. You have Wilderness Trail, their sweet mashing.
In addition to sour mashing? Or
no sour
mash.
mash. They're exclusively sweet mashing. And to me, and that's something from the older days, but no one on the bigger side wanted, they didn't want to change that part. And the reason why, sour mashing became extremely popular and very important is because they didn't have the equipment to keep themselves sanitational. So if you're running a distillery in 1860, you best be sour mashing because you'll have all this bacterial infestation coming in. By sour mashing, you actually prevent a lot of that. Now, I'm not a distiller and I'm not a chemist. I'm just someone that I've studied history and I know, I know some of this stuff. And you have in that time, sour mash was a stamp of quality. And so sour mash just gets on the label. And then you have like 5 brands by 1940 who are saying that they're original sour mash. So you have all these terms now. Everyone has an expectation of sour mash. Mm-hmm. But in the coming years, you're going to start to see sweet mash. And I think that's actually really, really interesting. And you will actually be able to taste it.
So do you still think there's a market for experimentation then? I mean,
Well, for them, that's not experimentation. That's how they're doing things. I think the time for catching people's attention might be over, but experimentation is absolutely necessary for some of these newer distillers, because they don't always want to take on what the big guys are doing.
It's gonna be a flooded market relatively soon, right? I mean, if we give ourselves another 3 years, 6 years, whatever it is, until they have a good aged, legit bourbon product, like there's gonna be a glut. There's gonna be an abundance, but yeah, there's not gonna be anything that sets anybody different from somebody else, except one's got a different price point.
Well,
fancier label,
bottle, whatever it is.
Well, I think it depends on the experiment. If you take a look at one experiment that started in the 90s, that was a barrel finish. Look where things are now with barrel finishes. They're all over the place. It's all about where things are from a taste perspective. It's all about taste. And the minute that a product loses its taste, it loses its value to consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's another thing, when it comes out of when I think about this and I think about the craft whiskey movement and everything, what about pricing, right? Because I see pricing as a very thing that's really hard to overcome. When I see a craft whiskey today that is 3 years, 4 years old, and it's $100 bottle, and then I've got my Four Roses Yellow Label over here, and that's a $25, $30 bottle, and it's arguably better to go with the Four Roses just on history, quality, everything that's already there. And not only that, so we have that and that huge gap in the pricing aspect, but let's also take, just like I said, the 375 milliliter Abraham Bowman release, that's going to be an $80 or $90 release for $375. Willet price hikes, like all these things that are happening in regards to pricing, like it's getting out of whack. And is there a way that consumers can change anything other than just not buying?
Well, I'll give you an anecdote that I had when I was in Total Wine. I was talking to someone. I just saw their purchase, and they were considering two bottles. It was an NDP bottle, so a non-distiller producer source whiskey product. It was $90, and Four Roses small batch, which was like $25. Mm-hmm. And they were considering both of them. The retailer had recommended the Four Roses, and someone else recommended the Four Roses, but they bought the $90 bottle. I went up to the lady and I said, "Why did you pick that $90 bottle?" She said, "Because the other one was cheap." And so here we are. We have this American mindset that more expensive is better. And you're actually seeing people who increase their prices be rewarded to a certain population of America. And that's a population that believes that you have to pay $110 for a pair of sneakers, and they're actually better than the ones that are $60. They could be the same exact sneaker. Mm-hmm. This plays out in every industry, and there's study after study that shows that there's a sweet spot, And for bourbon, I think that sweet spot of pricing is, for attracting a majority of this country is between $60 and $90. Unfortunately, that's more than a lot of us can afford, but distillers are seeing those same studies, and they're seeing those same things play out. And if you're pissed about it, say something. Say something about it on social media. Write these guys. And by the way, thank the ones who are doing it right for you. Like to me, Four Roses, they have remained at that price point for consumers. That was a strategy of theirs when they first came back on the market. They wanted to be inexpensive and of high quality. So I think you got to thank those people when they are of great value. Heaven Hill, Henry McKenna. If Heaven Hill is listening and they take Henry McKenna off, the 10-year-old off. I mean, I said this with the Elijah Craig one too, but I mean, it'll make me cry. Henry McKenna is where a lot of it's at for me from a purchasing perspective.
Right. The thing is with these big guys, and maybe it's a thing of, they've got the stock so they can price it accordingly, right? Where they can go by volume rather than by a certain market share. But at the same time, they've also been in the market forever. They've tested it, and so I think they know the price that they're at. And I think the problem is that we've gotten spoiled, right? We've gotten spoiled with the fact that sure, somebody now they want to do a whatever price hike, and we're gonna be mad, right? Like if all of a sudden Henry McKenna was a $60 bottle, like people are gonna be mad about it, right? Because it's been a solid go-to bourbon. All these different kinds. I mean, I think the Booker's fiasco is a very good kind of an idea of what the outcry was just from the bourbon community itself.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to the bourbon thing or the Booker's one than the outcry, because the outcry was significant, but I mean it was
just among whiskey geeks, right?
Yeah,
not the general populace.
Yeah, I think we had. I think we whiskey geeks had our insiders at Beam helping us to get it back down to the pricing. I don't think there was anything nefarious going on to push the case sales of that particular brand, because that was a very good selling brand. I mean, so there's no problems there. But
it's not like it flew off the shelf, right? You can always you can go to any store, you can always find Booker's.
You can always find Booker's, and it does well. Mm-hmm. So it's not a brand that's hurting, at least to my knowledge. But there's a lot of these things that you got to realize that these companies are large companies, and they buy people, or they bring in people who are not whiskey related. They come from Procter and Gamble, 2 weeks ago they were a franchise director for a Sonic company or whatever. They just bring in people.
Mm-hmm. They just know how to run the business. Doesn't really matter the product. Per se.
The distillers, the Jimmy Russells, the Jim Rutledges, the Harlan Wheatleys, those guys, they don't have a say. I mean, they're the face and they're the sexy person there, but the person who makes all the decisions is an MBA from whatever state university who's dictating to the rest of us what we're drinking, the label of it, what the price is going to be. And in 5 years, they're going to be fucking selling Toyotas at on a regional level or something. I mean, this is just another job for a lot of people. But I look at some of the core companies that bring value to us consumers. They actually try to hire people who have that same kind of passion and drive. And while the Elijah Craig age statement dropping, I mean, it was painful for me. Like that was my go-to. Mm-hmm. And I'm only just now where I can get back to drinking Elijah Craig.
You boycotted it long enough. I'll come back around.
Well, here's what happened was I did one of these events at the Kentucky Derby Museum, and they put it out there, and I was like, all right, I'll taste this. I tasted it. I was like, fuck, this is good. Damn it. and I tweeted or I said something publicly, and I was like, fine, I'm over it. It only took me like 8 months, but you got to realize, man, we have relationships with these brands. I mean, they got us through camping trips, in-laws, all sorts of things. And, it's we're really connected to the brands.
Right. Yeah, and that brand, you have that memory that's tied to it or whatever it is.
But, in defense of Heaven Hill, I mean, the value that they put on the shelf is second to none, And I think a lot of it is the people that they hire and they bring in, they are bourbon. They're not bringing in these fancy MBAs, and if they do, they're from the family or vetted from their family. And so you have value that you have people in those companies that are trying to protect us, as bourbon lovers. It's the same with Four Roses. Beam Suntory has that in Kentucky, and in Illinois they have it a little bit too. But I think I look for. If you have connections in the bourbon world, which it doesn't take much, all you have to do is get on Facebook, friend a couple of us, and then friend their friends, and before you know it, you're having coffee with Al Young on a Tuesday. So you just send it up the ladder. Mm-hmm. If you're really passionate about something, you gotta scream, you gotta fight for it on social media because the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
That's how it usually works.
And in this world, we can trend pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that we should be pursuing boycotts or anything like that. One of the things that I quickly got over was the boycotts of brands that acquired trademarks and put on a label and started using those backstories for their whiskey. I mean, everyone does that. I mean, you'd have to boycott the entire bourbon industry, because, oh, by the way, Heaven Hill didn't own Henry McKenna.
Those labels
or Rittenhouse.
They've been acquired. They've all been traded. It was a lot through, National Distillers going away. Like all those labels are just something that they just went up for a bidding war. And then right now you got a lawsuit going on between, I think it was like what Michter's and like Baumbargers or whatever.
Oh, that one, that one settled a long time ago.
Yeah, but I mean, you just had stuff like that going on too. Yeah,
yeah, that's ongoing, and if you're out there and you're listening and you want to start a bourbon brand, just don't name it anything after anything from Sazerac, and don't use the red dripping wax.
And you should be all right.
You should be all right. Those are the two. Those are the two things that'll get you.
There you go. So, Fred, I think we've drained enough bourbon information out of you today. Yep. So I want to say thank you again for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure to sit here and talk to you. And if anybody, Fred is by far, he's one of the truth setter in bourbon. He tells it like it is. And so make sure you go and you see him at Bourbon Beyond, at Forecastle. And, if you're looking for a getaway in the middle of February in a Norwegian cruise line, I think he can take care of you there as well. So
it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, the Bourbon Cruise. So I think, by the way, if somebody wants to actually book the Bourbon Cruise, do you know how they go about that?
Platinum Travel.
Okay.
Google Platinum Travel Bourbon Cruise.
There you go. So anybody that wants to go out there and do that, that's the way to happen. If you do like what you hear, make sure you write us some reviews on iTunes. Tell a friend. Do everything you can to help spread the word. We definitely appreciate everybody that's listening. If you, as I said earlier, when we started off our last episode, we were starting to look for advertisers. So if you run or own a small business or know somebody that does, that it can get in front of a few thousand people, it doesn't have to be small. Actually, big business is probably better. But if you want to get in front of a few thousand people every single week talking about bourbon,
I buy a lot of things from. I listen to podcasts, and that's where I'm most easily reached. In fact, my new underwear brand is from podcasting.
See?
Me underwear.
It does work. It does work. So make sure you keep that in mind if you are,
That's probably too much for the audience out there.
No, everybody watching the video, they're just picturing Fred in his underwear.
Sorry.
So again, Fred, want to say thank you again.
Yep.
I appreciate it. And we will see you all next week.
Cheers, man.
All right.